Hello and welcome to the Week in Nintendo right here on GVG. I'm your host this week, Steve Bowling, and of course, as always, I'm joined by my good friend and co-host, Brandon Miracle. How are you, Brandon?
What's going on, people? We're winning today.
We are. They thought it couldn't be done. They thought 2 episodes of The Win could not come out back to back, but we're proving them wrong. We're here to talk about everything that has happened this week in the world of Nintendo. If you'd like to join our winner's circle to get the full Week in Nintendo experience, you can join us over at patreon.com/gvgaming, where for as little as $5 a month, you get access to our Discord. You get access to each episode of The Win a day early, and you get a whole host of other benefits, but I'll let you check those out if you want to. Again, that's patreon.com/gvgaming. But this week, Brandon, there's not a ton of Nintendo news to discuss, which I don't know why they wouldn't be doing that. It's like 2 weeks till Christmas. Why aren't they just releasing stuff left and right?
You could call this a Nintendo drought that we're experiencing.
We are Nintendo doomed, as they would say every 5
Nintendo's
minutes
doomed.
in the GameCube era. But yeah, so it hasn't been like a heavy week for any. It's not just Nintendo, of course. Sony and Microsoft aren't really talking much either, because they've already made their case for why we should give them money this holiday season, and they're just waiting to see if we do it. Although Nintendo's in an interesting position, but before we get there and discuss Nintendo's holiday prospects, what have you been up to? What have you been playing, Nintendo or otherwise?
So I've talked about this a few times. I've been pretty busy lately, so I actually for once have not been able to keep up with current games. Like I'm still a little under halfway through Mario and Luigi Brothers ship. And I kind of pumped the brakes on Dragon Quest because I think my wife is going to get me a Portal for Christmas, so I'm going to wait until I have that so I can kind of laze about on the couch and casually play some Dragon Quest. I think that's just the experience I want. However, I have been playing some other games. I've been playing a lot of Fortnite. The new season just started, or chapter, and I've been really enjoying that. My friends play a lot of Fortnite. We just play zero build, just casually, no ranked. It's just fun. It's a good hangout game for us. I think I've come to find out that Fortnite is not the evil that I once thought it was. It's just a video game that I enjoy playing.
I'm glad you're coming around on that. I actually was up late last night playing Fortnite zero build unranked with my friends. So I've been on the hype train for Fortnite for a long time now. You know, it started with Save the World for me way back 10 years ago. It is interesting to see how much they continue to update and evolve that game. But yeah, I do think it's a lot of fun. And I think people who write it off probably haven't given it a fair shake or aren't playing it with friends, because I do think that that's what makes that game as fun as it is.
Yeah, I'm always shouting that from the rooftops, especially when I talk about Monster Hunter. If you're not playing with friends, you're not really, at least in my opinion, you're not experiencing the intended experience.
Yeah, I still need to jump aboard Monster Hunter with a group of friends, though I will say during the beta for the latest Monster Hunter, I was really into it, so I'm excited to pick that one up. But I have played some stuff on the Nintendo side. I promise I haven't just been playing PlayStation all week. I picked up Brothership again. I'm roughly about halfway through it as well, and it's not for lack of time. Honestly, on my side, it's for lack of interest. I'm struggling with Brothership. I'm struggling for it to keep me engaged. I think it's beautiful visually. It's very impressive to me, and it ticks that box for me of wanting Nintendo to make games that look like the beautiful art they produce for said games, which to me is a really big deal. But man, it feels very basic. Like it feels like it doesn't challenge me in any way. I don't have to think. I don't have to, I don't struggle with battles. Frankly, and I don't often use this as like a downside to a game, but it feels very much like a game made for young children.
Yeah, I haven't ever particularly found a Mario and Luigi game to be difficult per se, but you're right. There really isn't much thinking required to make your way through this one, which is a shame. But at the same time, I find that more often than not, I'm just struggling to s- stay awake. The game is just so slow paced. Like it's kind of dragging its feet. And Dream Team did that famously. And getting to the end of that game was a slog, despite like how good the good parts of the game are. Um, when it takes 300 years to get to it, it kind of takes the wind out of your sails.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing, and there's a lot of wasted and repetitious stuff in this game, like when they tell you where something is and you just have this really crawling camera pan over to it and then it crawls back to where you are as though you're unable to absorb, like you have no object permanence or something. And I don't doubt that my kids will absolutely adore that game, that they will play the heck out of it. It'll be under the tree for them this year. But I just don't know that those of us who grew up with these games and have been loyal to this series are really getting what we're due here.
No, it's a shame. I think the game is good. It's just it takes too long to be good. Um, Even like your basic combat abilities, I don't think I think it was like 8 hours into the game when I finally had jumping, hammer, bros attacks, and then the plugs. So like all the basic combat abilities were finally made available to me 8 hours into the game.
Yeah, that feels like too much. I mean, I'm all for games revealing mechanics progressively as you make your way through, but even when you have everything in Brothership, it's not like you needed a lot of time to absorb that information. It's not like you're getting your mind blown by how many different options there are in battle. It's a pretty simple system, which is good. I think it's good to have a battle system that's easy to understand, but it does feel like they're playing towards, you know, like very young children who will struggle to understand fundamental concepts unless they're introduced very slowly. Like it feels to me almost like Nintendo's usual demographic is probably like 10 and up, like where you're at 10 years old, a kid is semi-autonomous. Like they can figure a lot of things out for themselves. But this feels like they skewed more towards like 6 and 7, like kids that are barely starting school, like have just learned to read and this is like their very first RPG. And I just wish that they had maybe like a toggle, like to turn off, kids mode and handhold a little less. Give us the ability to move things forward, at a clip for people who have played games like this before. It's just kind of a shame because I think visually, the game is just one of the best looking Mario games ever, and I just wish that would held up. I mean, to say nothing of performance issues, which to be fair, I've not been playing this with like a critical eye like I usually do for games I'm going to cover. But I have noticed hiccups here and there on the Switch.
Yeah, I don't think it's nearly as bad as some early reviews may have suggested. Like they're there, but no, they're not the kind of frame drops that are going to annoy me. Um, I don't notice any kind of massive frame drops during combat, which is where it matters the most. There are some in the overworld, but ultimately that's not going to matter that much. It is annoying, of course,
Oh
but
yeah.
I don't think it's going to. It doesn't break the experience for me.
Yeah, and I would say, going back to your point about combat, that's the big difference, right? For me, I would say some of my, probably the framey game that annoyed me the most on I just slapped my mic. The framey game that annoyed me the most on the original Switch so far is Link's Awakening and to an even greater extent Echoes of Wisdom, because there is no mechanic that takes you out of that environment and fixes the frame rate for critical moments. Combat happens in those moments, so it's really important, that in this game at least, the the moments that make or break whether you're going to advance in the game run perfectly. That said, we do have a number of rumors about Nintendo's next console. I don't think we talked about it very much on the win, but Nintendo has obviously confirmed directly that the Switch 2, or whatever they're going to call it, the console they're currently calling the Switch successor, will be fully backwards compatible with the current iteration of the Switch. But we got like a handful of leaks that John and Ash made a video on. I thought it would be nice for us to also dissect those same leaks here on the win and give our opinions on them. And Brandon, I'm going to throw it to you first. The very first one is obviously this Switch Joy-Con leak out of China. And before we go into the particulars, what does your gut tell you about that leak?
My gut instinct was that's a load of baloney. Um, just the circumstances surrounding that leak are a little odd. Like, we don't live in a world where low quality video should be a factor for anything like that. Um, so that's a little strange. The Joy-Cons themselves, as much as you can see them, they look rounded, which the current Joy-Cons are not. If they are rounded, that'd be great, but I'm not expecting it. And just in general, something about it felt a little off. I couldn't quite put my finger on why. It very well could be another 3D printed situation with just some magnets built in, but it's not entirely clear.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it too. And I don't think it's a hot take to think that these are fake. Obviously, Nintendo fans get trolled more than just about any other type of fan. We end up taking a lot from, pranksters. I mean, all the way going back to I remember as a kid, obsessively searching for the Triforce and Ocarina of Time, and someone went out of their way, like in an era where Photoshop was not really a thing, to make fake screenshots of the Triforce and Zelda, like a whole series of them. But this is an interesting case. I find that whenever you have these potato quality leaks, these super blurry, super greasy looking videos and photos, that they're doing that to mask obvious flaws in their hoax. I'm sure that if we could see this at like full sharp, like modern cell phone camera quality, that people would pick it apart instantly. That, oh hey, the home button looks wrong, or the text on the L and R buttons is not what Nintendo uses. Nintendo fans would find every little issue with this and pretty quickly dismiss it. But for some reason, when you smear Vaseline on your camera, people start to believe, and it's such a weird thing, because we saw this with the Grinch leak way back when, which was also just super blurry, super low quality, but it was what people wanted to believe, and so it gained a lot of traction. And I think that's kind of true here, right? People just want to see the Switch 2 at this point, and so they're willing to dissect every little granule of information that comes through. But yeah, I'm very much team fake on this one, because the thing that strikes me the most is when you look at the video, the person clearly has what they want us to believe is a Switch 2, and they're detaching the Joy-Con from the console. Now, I could believe if this video was taken hastily and looked really bad, if it was, say, on an assembly line full of these Joy-Con, right? Like a factory worker who very quickly, like maybe hid their phone in their shirt, took like a 2-second clip of these Joy-Con running down the line and then turned it off, right? But this is somebody who clearly felt secure enough to hold the console like at presumably chest or eye height, and then take the Joy-Con off and manipulate it in their hands. That's not happening in a, you're not going to have to be that sneaky if you're able to hold the whole Switch like that out in the open, because the only places this could leak from would have to be Nintendo themselves, like a Nintendo office, or a Foxconn or whoever they're working with, right? We don't know, but a production line, like in a factory. And it just doesn't seem likely to me that if you're in a location so secure that no one's going to walk up to you and be like, hey, why are you holding the Switch 2 like that? What are you doing with it? That you wouldn't also be able to like hold your phone out, in a normal way and record it for a sec. So yeah, this just screams of being fake to me.
Yeah, I don't think there's much here in this particular leak. but it's not the only leak that we've had, right?
Right. We also had one that I thought was really funny. There was a Switch 2 case leak. And when we say case leak, we mean like a carrying case, which is a kind of interesting thing to me because I could take this as being real or fake. Um, but I think people looking at a case manufacturer, to provide any valid information about the Switch 2 is probably a stretch. But I'm curious what you think.
It's hard to say. We've had like accessory leaks before that ended up being true, like the Switch Lite. We had a couple cases for that get leaked before the actual console was revealed, but the stakes on that one are not nearly as high as something like a Switch 2, which is a new generation of Nintendo console, where the Switch Lite is just a new SKU. Um, so I'm not sure. I think it's likely that we'll start seeing accessories. I don't know whether this is completely solid or not, but it makes sense.
Yeah, it's I don't quite understand how case manufacturers work. I don't know how they source information. Um, I would be willing to say that I don't think Nintendo is really trusting anybody with uh case info or with like renderings of the actual Switch. Because when you think about how secretive Nintendo is, right? And you think about kind of how on a need to know basis they keep even their most trusted partners. Um, like very specifically talking about, let's say, EA, Capcom, Square. When you go back and you look at how Switch 1 development worked, most of the people within those companies didn't know what the Switch would look like even as they were working on games for it. They had dev units that looked nothing like what the final product would look like. And that's a very Nintendo thing to do. And in fact, that's just a very game publisher thing to do. Like, look at the Sony PS5 dev kit that looked like, it had that slice of pizza wedge in the middle of it. The final console looked nothing like that. Xbox 360 was literally just a Mac computer that they developed on. They would just buy like off the shelf Apple computers and then load their custom dev kit software on it and say, the Xbox 360 is going to run something like that. So just target this. Of course, once the consoles are like imminently coming to the market, then they, make a new dev kit and sell that to their partners that looks much more like the console itself. Like I'm sure Brandon, you've played on a Switch dev kit at this point at like a PAX or something like that, where it looks like a Switch, but it's got like little antennas coming out of the top for weirdly like manually connecting Joy-Con, which I'll never understand how that works. But like if you've never seen it, it's like these little antennas that connect to the Joy-Cons. It makes like a physical wireless connection. It's very strange, but
Weird.
yeah, yeah. If I could take a picture of one, I'd throw it on screen now, but I'm pretty sure I'd get in big trouble. But you can Google it. Someone out there has seen it. But my point, going back to cases, is that I don't think Nintendo's sharing much about the final physical form of the Switch successor with very many people. I would say that there's probably a handful of partners, like very high up people within partner companies that know exactly what the Switch 2 will look like. But I would be willing to bet that number outside of Nintendo is extremely small. So I think what's likely here is, I think a month or two ago, we got a CAD rendering of the Switch 2 that
Yep.
made the rounds on the internet. I think a case manufacturer saw that and they're like, let's just build cases for it so we can be first. And, this is not the first time in history that a case manufacturer has done something like this. I was talking with you about this before the show, but like 10 years ago when the iPhone 5 was the going concern and we were waiting to see what that would look like, there was a lot of smoke around a potential teardrop shaped iPhone, which just in hindsight sounds super weird. But it got so much traction that big case manufacturers here in the US started making cases for this iPhone that didn't exist. And they even made their way onto shelves like at Best Buy. And so it just goes to show you that, where there's sometimes even when there's a lot of smoke, you can just be wrong, and folks can, you can go to Best Buy and buy a case for something that'll never exist. So
It's so
I
funny.
it's really funny. I love that so much. I wonder if anybody still has those out there. Like if anybody bought one thinking they were going to get like a teardrop shaped iPhone and is still holding on to that case somewhere. I'm sure some Apple collector has one or two of them, but um yeah, I have to think that this is something where somebody just saw those CAD renders, which to be fair, I still believe those are legit. Like I think that those CAD renders are, if not exactly what we're going to get, they're extremely close. Because I think that Nintendo has probably worked in some pretty major design changes, and I think we all kind of accept that, larger screen, taller Joy-Con are definitely going to be things that are on the Switch too.
Yeah, I like these are things I think everyone is expecting, so it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to get too riled up about it. Um, then there's like the in addition to the case, there's like the screen protector. I'm looking at a picture of it right now. There's the Switch 1 screen protector with a Switch 2 screen protector behind it, which is significantly larger. Um, but I'm like, it's just a screen protector. What am I supposed to glean from that?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Screen protectors can at least tell you about sensor placement, like ambient light sensors, stuff like that. But
Yeah.
it's just a piece of glass, and I don't know that there's a whole lot to say about just a piece of screen glass. Like what, cool.
The other elements of that too, and I don't know if you've seen this picture, but the guy's reflection who's taking the picture is clearly visible in the photo.
Oh wow, I've not seen it, so that feels like something you wouldn't want to have in there.
Yeah, you can see his face, you can see his phone, you can see his wedding ring. Or I think that's his wedding ring. Maybe not. Um, this one feels sloppy. Like in some ways it's almost too sloppy. Like it's so sloppy it could be real.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair for a case, right? I wouldn't be super worried about people finding out about the case because obviously it's not like an official Nintendo product. And it's worth mentioning that the case has like a Switch 2 logo on it. That's a mock-up. There's no way they got the Switch 2 logo from Nintendo. Um, but I would say if you're making a case, this could just be somebody who works for the company that makes the case, and they're just like, yeah, we've got to throw some of these up on Alibaba, so let's take some pictures, or AliExpress as it's called now. So let's get some photos out of it, and there you go.
Oh,
Um,
there were two Switch case leaks because the one I
oh
was
wow,
looking at didn't have a logo on it.
interesting. So it sounds like Switch 2 cases are I mean, and again, I think you'll probably see a slew of these in the weeks and months to come prior to the announcement of the Switch 2.
Yeah. It's interesting though that at least this one with the logo on it has like space for the joysticks and the face buttons. It's also
Hmm,
rounded at the bottom, which,
interesting.
the the first rumor we talked about, the first leak, had rounded Joy-Cons as well, so there'd be a little bit of a lining up with that. But yeah, I'm still
It's
not
hard to
entirely
say.
clear.
Yeah, I mean, and it's entirely possible. I mean that these could be 3D prints based on accurate information.
Yeah.
It's hard to say who knows what at this point. The one thing I always tell people is if you didn't hear it from Nintendo, take it with a fistful of salt. I mean, there's, anything could change. These could be, and it could even be that Nintendo designed Joy-Con like these and decided to go another direction. People talk a lot about magnets on the Switch 2, but I don't think many people remember that Nintendo experimented with magnets for the Switch 1 and determined it wasn't a good fit. They publicly stated that much. They said that they had tried magnetic Joy-Con and that they just did not like the hold strength of them, that they would slip off the console. So they opted to go for the rail system that we all know and have feelings about today.
It's it is worth noting though that there are handheld PC consoles out there now with magnetic controllers. So maybe there was some breakthroughs in technology or a breakthrough in design that may have made that more feasible.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
so I still think the Switch 2 will have magnetic Joy Cons just in general because I think that's just a cleaner solution. Um, but but yeah, like you said, this it's based on prior existing information, or as the kernel in MGS2 says, a currently existing technology.
Yeah, it's an interesting spot to be in because I agree with you that I think there will be magnetic Joy-Con on the Switch 2, but obviously we've heard nothing official, or to confirm that. It's just something that we've heard in a couple of credible rumors at this point. But it's kind of amazing to me how Nintendo has kept this so quiet for so long, because we have to imagine, well, we know that a reveal of the Switch 2 is, relatively speaking, imminent. We've got 90 days until we know for sure what it is and what it looks like and probably what it does. I would imagine that at this point Nintendo, when they reveal it, is also going to make the case for why you should buy one.
Yeah, I mean, if it's too similar to the current Switch, in a variety of ways, they're really going to have to, laser in on the things that make it special or better. Um, but yeah, it is close. It's been soon TM for like a year now. But what's different now is Nintendo's told us that they'll have revealed it by March of next year.
Yeah. And I have to think that, current rumors are pegging potentially either a March or a June release. I think 90 days from reveal to release is smart. I would obviously prefer sooner just because I want my Switch 2 now.
Yeah.
I feel like we've seen the limitations of the console for years now. And, we all expected a mid-gen refresh with all those rumors of a Switch Pro that I still think like 20 years from now, we're going to find out that it did exist and just never saw the light of day for whatever the reason was.
Yeah.
Um, but, I think that Switch owners who have been in it since 2017 are very ready to get their hands on whatever Nintendo's going to offer next go around. Um, but we're getting close to what I would call the end of the episode. So let me pose a question to you, Brandon, to prompt some further discussion. We know that Switch 2 is going to be backwards compatible. Where does your opinion land on whether or not Switch games will be enhanced on Switch 2?
I think it's 100%. I don't think they let that one go, especially because I'm pretty confident that there will continue to be Switch 1 games released for the next couple of years. Um, and they might as well have enhancements for Switch 2 if they're going to be brand new games, because the people making those games are going to want Switch 2 owners to also buy them.
Yeah, I agree with that. Even specifically for the reasons you stated, the Switch 1 is at close to, if not already past 150 million units. Of course, Sony found another 10 million PS2 sales to hold on to the record. So we'll have to see how that plays out historically. But you certainly don't want to alienate or abandon an install base of 150 million potential buyers for anything that you're putting out. Uh,
Especially after you've had after you had a console failure as big as the Wii U.
Right. You want to see if you can capture that lightning in the bottle again. Like nobody wants to go from success to failure to success, over and over again. As Nintendo, I wouldn't say always has done, but definitely it seems to be a pattern of theirs, right? Nintendo 64 failure, Wii giant success, Wii U failure. And so people are waiting for Nintendo to buck that trend with the Switch 2. And I do think that the smart move, the smart play here is to keep that 150 million Switch user base engaged by providing them content, but also incentivizing them to get your new offering by saying like, hey, all that stuff, all that money you invested in our last console is still has value over here, and even more so in a way, right? Like I I would love to see Nintendo offer these updates for free, but the industry has kind of shown that if and where they can, they try to get more money out of their consumers, which I understand. Nintendo, like a business, is out to make money. They're out to get more
Nintendo
money.
themselves have also done this before. Like when you transferred your virtual console games from Wii to Wii U, you had to pay $1
True,
per game.
for every game.
Yeah. So I still question whether or not they're going to do that. It may even be a game by game basis. Like I think there was a rumor at one point of a Breath of the Wild remaster. And I'm like, are they going to sell that for $60 or 70 perhaps? Or is that just an update? And I don't really know where I lean yet.
See, so for me, I this is the problem. Trying to pin down what Nintendo's going to do is impossible. It's like reading tea leaves. Like you just can't do it accurately 100% of the time. But what I think, I mean, I can tell you what the smart move is. I think everybody can. Which would be, of course, to just offer these as free updates. Because I can tell you, as somebody who has lived in Apple's ecosystem on mobile for 16 years. A big part of the reason that I pick up a new iPhone is because I don't have to repurchase all my stuff from the last iPhone. I don't need to rebuy apps or songs or movies. And that makes me more inclined to continue to buy new products because I've already invested so much into that ecosystem. So, I mean, the smart move is for Nintendo to build a similar Switch ecosystem in which those games, all of them, whether they run better or not, are just, if you've spent the money, you've already spent it, and you don't need to re-spend it to, enjoy the fruits of having already spent presumably $300 to $400 on a new piece of hardware to enjoy them on. It's I think no consumer likes getting the news that, your reward for a $400 plus purchase is having to then pay money to update all your stuff to work on it. But it's
Yeah, I
also
mean,
Nintendo.
I'm looking at my library, and I've been very public about this, that the majority of my Switch library is digital. Like almost all of it is digital. And if I had to go to Switch 2 and um prior, if I had to go to Switch 2 and not have any of them at all, I was going to be really upset. But we know that's not the case now. However, if I want to have enhancements on those games, if I have to spend $1, even at $1, I'm forking over a lot of money to update my games. If it's like $10 per game, I won't be able to do it. It'll be too expensive.
Oh yeah. I mean, I I sh- I think I've disclosed the number of digital games I have on my Switch in the past. It's north of 400 at this point. And I mean, to be fair, a lot of those are like smaller games that I probably wouldn't want to buy an update for because I played them and I don't want to re-experience them. But even taking into account Nintendo's just their first party stuff, just their first party efforts, which, I definitely bought all of those. You're talking thousands of dollars like in updates to games, right? Like you could be, if you're at $10 a game, I think I could see myself wanting to update like 100 games. And that would be horrifically expensive. Um, so I'll be curious to see what they do here. I mean, I could see them kind of doing what Sony's done and having it both ways. Like some games that natively have updates where some larger efforts require a secondary purchase. Like, uh, let me think. I can't, an example of a game that is a PS4 game that
Hmm.
runs better on PS5 is kind of escaping me, but we have seen the $10 upgrades, for Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered, which to me, it's a proper remaster. It's not just the PS4 game running at 60 FPS or whatever.
Right.
So I'm okay with that. But I don't think I'm okay with paying for just my Switch games, zero enhancements to run more smoothly, like to uncap the frame rate and let it run higher.
Yeah. I mean, thanks to that video that John did, we already know that there are several games available already with uncapped frame rates that will just naturally work better on a Switch 2, which is nice. But that's not gonna apply to everything, and those games aren't gonna run at higher resolutions. Um, but I I was thinking about this, and Nintendo is continuing to find ways to bolster the Nintendo Switch Online subscription. I'm not saying I want them to do this, but if they are going to charge us money, it'd be really cool if you're an NSO subscriber that you just didn't have to.
Yeah. I agree that that is not the scenario I'd like to see play out. However, um, it would definitely add value to NSO subscriptions to have, they've tested the waters with this, albeit inconsistently with DLC, right? Like
Yeah.
Nintendo has made some first party DLC free for NSO subscribers. And honestly, at the time that they first started doing that, I was like, "Oh, this makes the plan worth it by itself." Being able to get Happy Home Designer for Animal Crossing or the expansion pass for Breath of the Wild. Keep doing that, and you will have paid for this service, dozens of times over for me and my family. Which unfortunately they just kind of, I mean, they did Octo expansion as well, but then we didn't get,
Side order.
side order. So it's just a weirdly inconsistent approach. I'm guessing they tried it and were unhappy with, the financial return on investment there or something. Um, but I could see like you know, update patches being something they lock behind there, but that would be kind of that weird Nintendo move that I described earlier where
Yeah.
it's not at all what your consumer base wants, but it's something that Nintendo would do. So there's so many question marks around what this console will be, and I'm waiting for that kind of other shoe to drop. We talked last week about Nintendo doing things 80%, right?
Yeah.
Getting 80% of the way to perfection. And I'm fully expecting that will continue. That the Switch 2 is going to be this amazing thing that we're all going to be excited for. And in the days following we'll be like, "But did you notice this? Did you notice this one detail that is off-putting or is executed in such a weird way that it's unusable?"
I'm anticipating there to be 5 or maybe 6 things about the Switch 2 when it's revealed that are going to make me groan.
Yes. Yeah, like an enhanced phone app for voice chat. Now we've
Oh my
got we've
god.
got a new phone app that's even better. And your Switch connects to your phone and you have to have both on and charged at the same time for it to work.
Yay.
There will be something very weird like that just doesn't make sense in 2024 or really in any other year. All right, it's almost time to wrap things up, but before we do, each and every episode of the Week in Nintendo, we take questions from our winner circle, which I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, but if you'd like to find out how to join, patreon.com/gvgaming. With the promotional bit out of the way, Brandon, what's your mailbag item for this week?
So mine comes from Hendrix, and they ask, how much did you use your Switch this year compared to previous years? Given around this time last year, many thought 2024 would be the year the next system would finally be announced and released. And I do think that this year is the least I've used my Switch since launch. I'm pretty positive. I'm just thinking about all the games that released this year. Princess Peach Showtime, I didn't play a ton of. Um, Monkey Ball, I played a lot of. Um, Brothership, I'm just kind of slowly making my way through. I played the crap out of Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. Um, but outside of that, oh, and Zelda, I don't think it really got a ton of extra use out of me.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I feel like the Switch 2 the Switch has started to wind down, and as a result of that, I've been playing it less and less over time. I would say that over the last couple of years, my Switch playtime has been diminishing, and that's strictly because there's just other stuff happening on other platforms that has held my interest for longer. We both talked about kind of how we've been playing Fortnite more lately, and that is not a great experience on Switch. I think that
No.
a Switch 2 could make Fortnite a lot more enjoyable. But when I play Fortnite, I play it 4K, 120 FPS on my PS5. Um, and it's one of those games that just is not ideal on Switch on its best day. But Nintendo has continued to release things that keep the dust from settling on my Switch. So, Echoes of Wisdom, I certainly spent a good amount of time with, but it is a one and done game. So it's like you play it for 30 hours ish and then it's over. Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, I had a great time with that. But again, I played it, I beat it, and I moved on. Um, we had recently in terms of like the last couple of years, we had the Super Mario RPG remake. Was that 2024 or was that late 2023?
It was late 2023.
Yeah, see, it's starting to blend together. But
Hmm.
I played that, but right now the Switch is kind of a console where Nintendo drops something, like there's a first party offering, and I scramble over and I play that for a bit, and then I put the Switch back and I go back to my other consoles for now. It's kind of the inverse of what was happening from like 2017 to 2020, where I would play everything on Switch and my Switch got thousands of hours of playtime. Whereas now the Switch kind of sits in the dock until I've got something that I want to play that is best on Switch. I've got Balatro on Switch, which I will be playing over the next week for Game of the Year prep. I've got Dragon Quest 3, which I opted to pick up on Switch, even though I do know that it's better on other platforms. I just liked the portability of it, but yeah, my Switch is seeing less use, and I think that that's a natural occurrence over time. Like if you think back to any console in its final year or final couple of years, you're probably playing it a lot less if you're a multi-console home. So if you have other
Hmm.
options, the PS5 is 4 years old. The Switch is double that. And so the PS5 is kind of in its prime where the Switch is on its way out. So I think it's only natural that I'm playing something that has a bit more life left in it, a bit more gas in the tank, if you will.
Yeah, the Switch has had a long, vibrant career so far, but we've the reason we keep talking about Switch 2 as much as we have been is, I mean, it's pretty evident. The well is starting to run dry in some respects, and uh, we're ready to move on.
Yeah, I mean, you see more and more first party efforts coming out with bigger and bigger performance issues, and it leads you to wonder if Nintendo ever wanted these games on the Switch. If maybe something happened internally and they had planned for the Switch 2 to be out by now and they just couldn't get it to market in that time, so they moved games from something more powerful to this, and as a result we because this generation, the Switch generation, has had the most performance issues in Nintendo's own first party offerings. I
Hmm.
would have said even on the Wii U, I would have not have expected kind of the level of framey stuff that we see in Nintendo's first party games. But it is
It
what it
is
is.
important to note that 4 years into the Switch's life, we had a global pandemic, which
Right.
we're still seeing the effects of in terms of games and other forms of media and just everything in general. We're still seeing the effects of that take place.
Yeah, I mean, Nintendo even directly acknowledged that in several directs. Like at the beginning, they had that little COVID-19 blurb at the beginning of most directs for a while, just saying like, "Hey, stuff was impacted by this horrible situation, and we're still working through it." I definitely believe that their hardware business was strongly affected by that. Um, but anyway, thank you so much for the question, Hendrix. This week in the mailbag, I picked up a question from Shellshock, who writes, "Should Nintendo make a mobile app for the Switch eShop? That way you can buy games on eShop on your phone and it downloads onto your Switch." So, to be clear, you actually can do that today. It's not fun, but you can. If you go to Nintendo's website on your phone, you can purchase and download games right now. It's a cumbersome experience. It's very slow, and it doesn't always work, but it is there. Like the functionality exists. Like when I have used my gold points and redeemed them, or is it platinum? One of the two. I've redeemed them for games on my phone, and you'll have a little download to console button, but it's the eShop, and I wanted to pick this topic up broadly because the eShop is so bad. It is not very good.
Yeah, it's in a bad place. I hopped onto the eShop yesterday just to see if anything had come out that just kind of passed me by without noticing, and it was just top to bottom AI generated thumbnail slop.
Yeah, it's a rough place right now. Nintendo probably needs to do a bit more content moderation on the Switch eShop. Um, but I mean, outside of just the content, which yeah, there's a lot of shovelware BS on the Switch eShop right now. And to be fair, it's not a Switch exclusive issue. You do see it on PlayStation and Xbox as well, but Nintendo surfaces it a bit more than those other shops do.
Hmm.
You kind of have to dig to find the real bottom of the barrel on other platforms. Whereas with Nintendo, they're like, we're going to show you everything that came out, regardless of if it's good or if it's absolute, garbo. Um, but I think the bigger issue for me is how uh, poor performing the eShop is, like in terms of just navigation. Like when you
Hmm.
go through it on your Switch is struggling to load thumbnails, to show you new games. Buying games shouldn't be hard. It should be the easiest thing you do on your console.
You would think. But this has been a problem since the Switch launched, and it's never not been a problem.
Yeah, it's very bizarre to me that it works as sluggishly as it does. You would think that they would put this at a pretty high priority to, show games to potential buyers and to make buying them an easy thing to do. And I do think a phone app would go a long way toward that. Having like a performant app on your phone that's well optimized and lets you do stuff that way would be a godsend. Because I
I
will tell
mean,
you that PlayStation has an app, and I actually like buy games more from my phone
I
than
was
I
about
do
to
from
say
the
the exact
console.
same thing. I primarily use PlayStation's app to buy my games for my PlayStation because it's just more convenient. I don't want to like sit down, turn on my console, and navigate through the shop to the game I want to buy when it just pops into my head. I'm like, oh yeah, I wanted to buy that. No, I'm just gonna
Yeah.
get on my phone and do it.
Well, I will tell you one of the things that I really enjoy about being on my phone to buy games is that I'll get a tweet from like Wario64, and he'll say like, "Oh, such and such game is for sale on PSN right now." And he includes a link. And if I tap the link, the app just opens to the game like on my phone, and I just say buy game. And I think that Nintendo is famously bad at this kind of stuff. And I don't like to say things like Nintendo doesn't understand this, because Nintendo is a company with tons and tons of people in it. And I guarantee you there are plenty of people within Nintendo who are screaming at them like, please, phone app, do this. Like you will see more sales because of this. But the problem is, the big decision makers at Nintendo, and I'm not sure if it's bureaucracy or if it's just short-sightedness or what it is, but Nintendo famously is like 10 years behind the curve on all things internet
Yeah.
related. And, we're talking about a console that came out in 2017 with no voice chat, like, that they bolted it on through a phone app. With still to this date, no messaging of any kind. Like, I can't message you and be like, "Hey, Brandon, I see you're online. Do you want to play a game with me?" Like, I can't, I have to grab my phone and text you, you know?
Even game invites are dumb. Like the few games that use the Switch onboard game invites, like if you're in the game already and you accept the invite, it closes your game and reloads it.
Yep.
Why?
It is such a weird system, and it's just like you can tell there are people at the helm at Nintendo who clearly don't understand the appeal of it, who have not played a game online and have not talked to anybody who does. Like they just aren't interested in figuring that segment of the market out, which surprise is most of us. Like most of us play games online. Most of us connect with our friends this way. We went through a whole global pandemic where that was the only way we could play with people. So it is an interesting uh subject, but yeah, I feel like there have to be voices internally at Nintendo that are screaming for this type of functionality. Just give them an eShop app. You know, I mean, you literally could deliver sales directly to your consumers if you could just pop up a notification on their phone saying, "Hey, this game I know you want is on sale," because they email you that stuff now. They'll
Yeah.
email you. who reads their email? But uh, so it's just a wild scenario to me. So to broadly answer your question, Shell Shock, yes, I think they should. I don't think they will.
It's such a shame too, because we already have the Nintendo Switch Online app, which is effectively useless. You know, there's the Splatoon 2 Splatnet, there's the Splatoon 3 Splatnet, and that's good if you play Splatoon.
Yeah.
If you don't
It,
play Splatoon, why do you have the app?
yeah, you can't even download the NSO apps to your Switch from the NSO app on your phone. It's just there are so many things they could do because I know personally, I forget about NSO every now and then I have to go update it. It'd be nice if they could just tell me like, hey, an updates for NSO is out. Do you want to have us update it on your console? Because for whatever reason, the Switch only updates the like 8 most recent games you played and then leaves the other ones to kind of rot. So every time I go to play a game I haven't played in the last like 6 weeks, I need to wait for it to update over the Switch's insanely slow Wi-Fi. There are so many things I want the Switch 2 for. And I'm hoping like I really need to build like a dream checklist of all the things that, frustrate me about the current iteration of the Switch, a console that I very much love and hope that Nintendo will fix. I want to see how much feedback they took from players over the last basically decade.
It's a lot of time to field opinions. And it's not like Nintendo is ignorant of what players are asking for. We know that they're not. Um and with as much time as it's been since the Switch has been out, that's a lot of time to take feedback and implement it.
Yeah, and it just feels like like I said, Nintendo will probably fix so many things that will be over the moon when we finally learn what this console really is. But there will be those like 5 or 6 things, like you said before, that they just won't, or that they'll make worse, and it'll drive us all crazy.
I hope that's not true, but I know in my heart that it is.
And I think that's about as good a stopping point as any. So thank you so much, Shell Shock, for the question. Thank you to all of our patrons in the Winner's Circle for helping make this show happen. Of course, your support means the world to us. And thank you to those of you that are listening on whatever podcast service you enjoy the win on or just watching us here on YouTube. We appreciate each and every one of you coming to hang out with us and listen to the Weekend Nintendo. Thank you all so much for watching or for listening. I hope you're happy, safe, and healthy wherever you are, and we'll see you next time.